The house on Hollow Creek. Lydia had never been to Hollow Creek before, but the inheritance papers were clear. A distant aunt she barely remembered had left her the family estate, an old house crouched on the edge of the woods. The locals in town gave her wary looks when she asked for directions. One cashier whispered, "Best to leave it locked up, miss." Lydia forced a smile. She didn't believe in haunted houses. The gravel road curved into a tunnel of trees before opening onto the property. The house was enormous, its paint flayed by decades of rain, the windows black like empty sockets. A cold wind pressed against her as she unlocked the door. The hinges groaned. Dust drifted down, disturbed by her arrival. Inside, the air smelled of wet stone and iron. Sheets covered the furniture, but each cloth was damp, as though something had been seeping through them for years. In the parlor hung a portrait of a woman Lydia didn't recognize. Sharp eyes, a thin mouth painted as if she was about to speak. The plaque read, "Margaret Holloway, 1891. The first night was uneventful, except for the scratching. At first she thought it was mice in the walls, but the sound was deliberate. 3 short scrapes, a pause, then 2 long. It came from behind the parlor wall where the portrait hung. Lydia pressed her ear to the plaster, heart racing, but there was only silence. She told herself she imagined it. The second night, Lydia woke to footsteps above her room. The upper floor should have been empty, but the boards creaked with steady, dragging steps. She climbed the stairs, flashlight trembling in her hand. Dust coated the hallway, yet when she reached the last door, the dust was disturbed. 2 long smears, as though someone had been crawling on hands and knees. She opened the door. Inside was a small nursery. A crib sagged in the corner, and wallpaper peeled in strips, revealing claw marks etched into the wood beneath. On the rocking chair lay a bundle wrapped in rotted cloth. When Lydia touched it, the cloth collapsed into itself, empty. Something skittered into the shadows. She fled, slamming the door. The portrait in the parlor had changed. Margaret's painted mouth was open now, as if caught mid-scream. On the third night, she resolved to leave. She packed her bag, but when she reached the front door, the key turned uselessly in the lock. The knob refused to move. Every window she tried was sealed, as though welded shut. The house had no intention of letting her go. The scratching returned, louder, closer. She heard it not from the walls, but from inside the room. Behind her, the sheet covering the couch shifted. A figure sat beneath it. Slender, unmoving. Lydia backed away, but the sheet began to sink, collapsing as though the figure inside were crawling toward her on all fours. She bolted up the stairs. Doors slammed shut one by one behind her until she had no choice but to run into the nursery again. The crib rocked violently, though no hand touched it. Whispering filled the room, layered voices chanting her name in broken gasps. Lydia! Lydia! The bundle in the rocking chair had returned. This time it twitched. Slowly the cloth unwound, and within lay a blackened, eyeless skull of something not quite human. Its jaw clicked open and shut, in a hungry rhythm. From behind her came another sound, a woman's voice, soft and wet. "You came back to us." Lydia turned. Margaret Holloway stood in the doorway, no longer a painting. Her face was stretched too thin, her mouth splitting wider than humanly possible, exposing a throat raw and dark. She reached out a hand, fingers jointed wrong, bending backward. Lydia screamed and hurled the flashlight, shattering the nursery window. But beyond the glass was no night sky, only another wall, a mirror image of the nursery, stretching on infinitely. Inside each reflection, Margaret stood closer, closer, until the last showed her face pressed against the glass. The light went out. No one in Hollow Creek saw Lydia again. Weeks later, the house sat waiting, the portrait of Margaret Holloway smiling faintly once more. Her eyes a little brighter than before, as though they had just been fed.